welcome back to a post-Thanksgiving episode of the BAT podcast. Howard, Randy, and Zach here with you today. What's up, guys?
Stoked to be here. Really excited to be back in BAT HQ and recording a little podcast and getting together, talking about what's been going on. What's been happening with you guys?
Good to be with you guys. 10 pounds heavier after the meal I ate last week. So I thought we could circle back. You talked a little bit, Howard, about gearing up for the Velocity Invitational before we headed out for the holiday. You both drove and spectated, is that right?
Yeah, it was down at Velocity. That was a few weeks back. It was a really, really good event. Run by a guy named Jeff O'Neill, who's a local guy. They did something similar. Their inaugural event was called the Sonoma Speed Festival. So this was the second installment of that. They moved it down to Laguna Seca and rebranded it as Velocity. So I was driving in kind of the big bore V8, late 50s, early 60s group. I was driving a B-modified special called the Monsterati, which is basically a car that was built in period and ran in the southeastern region of the SECA with all the big stuff of the period. It's based on a 39 Ford frame with a small block Chevy, as a lot of the cars in that group are. Big horsepower, mix of drum and disc brakes, but Maserati Verticages and Cooper Monacos and various specials, like the car I was driving, stuff made by the likes of Troutman and Barnes, and there was a Chaparral 1 that was in the group, which is kind of a scarab on steroids. And so exciting experience for me. But then there was 9 or 10 other groups, really high bar for eligibility and car authenticity. So the stuff that was running tended to be very, very exceptional. This was a cool event in that it wasn't kind of the traditional cars parked in front of the big rigs. It was kind of took some cues from Goodwood and other events where all the cars were tented and all together. So I think that format is much more interesting just visually and also for spectators. And it's cool to have all the drivers together, right? And they do it by group. So you go out with the group, you come back in. It's just a much more kind of friendly and congenial way to do it. So I thought that was pretty neat.
Really moving up in the world from your Spec Miata race just the other weekend. How did it feel to be back out on track?
It was good. Yeah, those cars are a bit terrifying, just given that they're all kind of 400 or 500 horsepower and don't stop very well. And so that definitely requires your full attention. This event had some cool new stuff. They did what did they do? They had the McLaren F1 team that was there, including the chief himself, Zach Brown, who skipped the Brazilian F1 race to be at Velocity. So that was definitely a vote of confidence from him to be there with his crew.
I heard he gave a talk. Did you go to that, or did you skip that?
He gave a few talks. I didn't go. There was a dinner. I didn't go to that. They had Mika Hakkinen out, who's kind of a McLaren ambassador, doing hot laps in a real F1 car they brought. So that was pretty neat to watch.
More importantly, he brought his BAT alumni RV that was there in the paddock. I don't know if you saw it.
I did. I missed that. Man, you should have texted me. I would have gotten a pic of it.
Yeah, the McLaren team RV from the early 70s that Zach Brown bought on BAT and now has toured around. He brought it to Indianapolis. He brought it now to Laguna, to the vintage event. And it's sort of one of his favorite vintage race items.
Wow. No, that's huge. I got to search to the web for some pics of that in the paddock. They had a cool event, which they built as the Mini versus Mustang Enduro, and they scheduled that as a night race. The sun goes down early this time of year, and so they kind of dropped the green flag at dusk, and it was an hour race into the night. And I'd never been at Laguna or Sears, for that matter, for a night race, so seeing them going around. Light track lights, obviously headlights on. They probably had 40-ish cars, mostly minis, but some Mustangs. But just a cool new type of race that I don't recall ever kind of being done recently. So that was a highlight for me.
I think that's fantastic, like that they're innovating and doing new stuff. And that one, how the heck did they pick Mini against Mustang? I mean, it's just sort of, was that just grabbed out of thin air? Is there some heritage like that was done back in the day or something? Or is that just like an idea they came up with, over beers one night? Like, let's have Minis race against Mustangs.
Totally. There's some good footage of Mount Panorama, Australia back in the day.
Maybe.
Stuff like that. Zach, I was in the Sip and Savor tent watching that as all the races wound down. But Yeah, we were pitted across from the minis, and we were talking like, where did all these minis come from?
Yeah.
Haven't seen them at a vintage race event in years, and yet here's 40 of them. So all these guys, they had Nick Swift, the Goodwood.
Swift showed up?
Yeah,
wow.
He was.
I thought it was usually, used to be back then anyway, Don Racine from Mini Mania, bring the 171 red cars out of Tahoe area or Auburn or wherever he is anyway, bringing those cars out. But I haven't seen them, like you said, in a long time, but they pulled a bunch out, huh?
Yeah, they pulled a bunch out. Swift, I don't know if he won the race, but he was up there.
Swift Tune Engineering.
Oh, is that him?
Oh yeah, that guy's always like doing crazy stuff at Goodwood. It's fun.
Yeah, our buddy Martin Lauber. Shout out to you if you listen to this. He had an amazing race in his RSR. Won with an amazing battle, 3-car battle for the lead. He was also driving a Mini. I didn't realize he was up there in third or fourth driving.
Did they have vintage F1 classes as well?
They did have F1. Yeah, it was a bit of a lighter field.
I see. Okay.
And they cut it off at 79, so it's the DFV era F1 cars. Anyways, you can go down that path. But
for sure, I just know Lauber rolls a F1 car, but his is a little later, right?
Yeah, he had the Jägermeister car, and then I think he upgraded to a John Clare Special. Nice. Maybe we ought to get him on here to tell us all about.
We should
driving vintage F1 cars, but Velocity was a great event. I had a great dice with 2 of the bird cages, which is the best seat in the house to watch the races, and definitely want to be careful tiptoeing around with cars like that. But I was having a great time. And Zach, we missed you down there.
I know, almost. And then it was about 3.5 hours of traffic just to catch the mini night races. And I said, maybe next year.
Mm-hmm.
So what kind of lap times are you running in the Maserati?
I got down to like a 49 or 50.
Solid.
I think I have gone faster in it. But the fast cars were doing like low 40s. Spencer Trenery, former BAT podcast guest, he was driving a Cooper Monaco, won the race in our group on Saturday, and then the car broke, so he was out. But it was all sorts of familiar BAT faces in the group. So it was, it's all about the people. It makes it fun if you know who's out there. So
sub 150, you're blowing past the vape pen crowd at Speed SF events. So pretty
impressive.
That
put me in the advanced group.
I think so. Yeah, you're graduating from point by only in the Monsterati. If you ever want to take that for Speed SF weekend.
Oh man, that thing is a beast. It's
describe it. Most people probably have no idea what.
Yeah, it's we ought to post a pic of it, but it's a B modified special, so kind of a not a junkyard racer, but a guy by the name of Bill Janowski, who's almost 90 years old, who was actually there watching the car, who's still very invested in vintage racing and the car he built. Wanted to run SCCA and in Texas, and then later kind of throughout the Southeast region, and so endeavored to build a car for the B-Mod class, which ran with the 250 TRs and all the stuff in that period. He ran it from 57 to 62 with a variety of engines, but its current form is a small block Chevy with a T10 4-speed, so pretty straightforward drivetrain, but pretty punishing car to drive just in terms of 450 horsepower brakes that are somewhat effective but are still drums. Other cars are running discs in that group, and something that definitely is very easy to power slide off the corner and definitely can make you look heroic just by virtue of the fact that there's a lot more motor than tire. But it's definitely an exciting car to drive.
How many laps does it take to feel confident going over the crest at Laguna?
That's more of a car you don't want to hammer the brakes too much and get super darty if you're really saving your braking. That's not the type of car you're going to get people under braking in. So you want to play to its strengths, which is power. So maximizing slow in, fast out, and Laguna is obviously a fast track with a lot of straightaways. So that car definitely shines there for the most part. But I was happy to complete the race weekend unscathed, but exciting stuff. Definitely wetted my whistle for vintage racing in 2022, Zach.
Oh, good to hear. Yeah, maybe one day I'll be as brave as you and actually be able to go flat over the crest and something like that.
I don't think I was flat over the crest in that. Yeah, I could say that I was, but I was definitely kind of, I was taking a breather at the bridge and going kind of half throttle over. But full throttle in that car, you definitely are get going pretty quick in a pretty short period of time. So then you got to slow down.
So taking a step back, just the event on the whole, what would you say really differentiates it from other events that are hosted at Laguna Seca year round?
They're just trying to do this whole different format for vintage racing, and I could see them kind of maybe even usurping the traditional kind of Monterey Historics. So this was kind of an interesting test run for them, having done it at Laguna. But really just the layout of the cars and kind of eliminating all the big rigs and kind of that setup. I think probably the race crews don't love it because the cars are parked away from all of the tools and gear. But visually, and yeah, would encourage people to check out social media and recaps of the event. But visually, it's super compelling for me. The pre-grid, they do it in the hot pit, which is kind of way more restrictive for the general public. For this event, they lined all the cars up in the paddock, also kind of Goodwood style, which allowed everyone to kind of be there for the start of the race. And they had kind of the Goodwood TV cameras going on and the announcers, and so. Definitely the fanfare and feel of it felt kind of elevated and really professional in a way. So it was fun as a driver and also just to be there.
Yeah, from my perspective, which was again via the internet at home because I did not make it down, it looked like an overwhelming success. All of the media coverage was just so sick and really made me feel like I missed out. So hopefully I budget my weekend a little bit better next year.
Yeah, and just having McLaren F1 there just makes it feel like it's something special. They had 2 years ago, they had the Mercedes F1 team, so we'll see what they can pull out of the hat for next year. But they had 4 performances there with 6 or 7 GTLMs. They were doing exhibition laps in those, and yeah, just like I said, just the race cars were amazing, but the stuff going on for demonstration and exhibition, 300 SLRs and Gurney Eagle F1 cars and all that sort of stuff really made for just a jam-packed every day of really cool stuff going on track.
I love it. I'm a little bit of a Monterey Historics loyalist for August, So it's super interesting to see another event come along and do things differently and push the envelope a little bit and do some things that are working in other markets or just try innovative things. I think it's awesome. I think all events should be thinking about new and exciting things that can be done. And that I bet that was an eye opener for anybody running an event at Laguna or elsewhere. Like, wow, look at this. This is a cool new way to do it. So anyway, yeah, I appreciate their media approach and obviously, yeah, night race. I mean, do some creative stuff. So anyway, I hope they have some other cool events coming up because it seems like they know what they're doing.
Nice. Shifting gears a little bit, Randy, you're I think the only one of us that actually did something related to cars other than just answering some emails over the Thanksgiving break. What were you doing?
Well, you guys were mentioning, Black Friday and everything else, all the cars jamming through the site. There's certainly a ton to talk about there. We'll talk about the cars. I've been back turning wrenches again, which I've been excited about. A car that was on BAT a really long time ago that people may or may not remember is a white 87 BMW 535 IS that I own, which was a US spec car, but the S model, which is kind of a cool one. We bought it when the whole team went up to Dirtfish in Seattle. I don't know if you guys remember seeing that car up there, but we bought it up there and kind of documented finding it on Craig's, and we're going to do another project car out of this and brought it south, and it's been at the BAT office for a good amount of time since. And we're finally doing a Euro bumper swap on that car, and I decided to do it myself. So source all the pieces. Now you get them, it goes back and forth to the paint shop 2 or 3 times because you're test fitting stuff and modifying stuff.
Bumper swap's no joke on that car, right? You actually have to do a little bit of metal work.
Yeah, it's kind of a pain, actually, as it turns out. Halfway through projects like this, you tend to wish you maybe had somebody else do it. But I've been pushing through and doing it, and my kids have been helping out, and some buddies of mine have been helping out. And
where are we? Halfway through, or what's the?
No, we were at no joke, 97%. I know you roll your eyes because I always say all my projects are at 97% there, but no, this one is fully running and driving. I need to wire up the fog lights and the front turn signal indicators, but the bumpers are assembled on, front and rear panels on, welding work done. All the parts sourcing that was done some months ago. So everything's going together. It's all happening, which feels really good. For people that have seen those cars on the site, the Euro bumper swapped cars and the Euro market cars, I would say bring a pretty meaningful premium. E28 M5s in black, just the standard US cars obviously bring really good money, but same car with Euro bumpers, I personally would pay more for. I think it looks so much better, and it's
Slim bumpers
transformative.
do so much for those, just like they do with E30s.
Yep. So there's a few models, or like a 73 versus a 74 3.0 CS, right? Like people pay way more money for the early chrome bumper cars. So there's reason to do it. It is a hassle, but man, the thing looks good. This is a white car, so it's getting the white painted bumpers.
But your reason is mostly pride. Ever since you owned that car, you've been talking about doing the bumpers on it.
I've been talking, big talker ever since getting that car, and it always, for those cars, if you're looking at them, you always wish that it had those, and this one finally doing it. So it's getting the headlights and all the lighting and the bumpers. So that car will be on the road, ideally next week, assuming I can get all my crimps and splices and positives and negatives working for the lighting, and then we're good to go.
And I love that your kids are helping you. What's their level of involvement? Are they grabbing hardware off the shelf when you're crawling around the car, or what do you have them doing for you?
Well, it's a good question. It's made me be sort of fascinated with how these cars were put together originally, because one person can't assemble it like on their own. If there's one guy trying to put the front bumper on in the factory, things are banging into it. You got to slide these, 4 different things in at the same time. So you need multiple people. You need sometimes 3 people, but oftentimes 2 people. So I'm the guy that has to figure out, like, is a 5-year-old capable of helping with this, or is a 10-year-old capable of helping with this, or do I need to, draft my wife or some friends or a neighbor or or my dad, or what do I need to do? So anyway, there's some needs, and the young ones like chase tools and they're stoked just to do the dustpan and the broom afterwards or whatever. But some other folks have been able to really help out in terms of meaningful stuff. We were welding on the car 4 or 5 weeks ago and doing different stuff that's pretty significant. So that stuff's hard. And then I had to find a body shop. I hadn't taken a car to a body shop for that sort of small detail work. A lot of body shops will roll their eyes. You're like, I need these 3 bumper parts painted to match. And they're like, we'd rather paint an F-150 that got sideswiped. We don't need you. So anyway, but I found, really, really cool folks that have been putting up with me coming back 3 and 4 times with small odd jobs to get this thing done. So anyway, you got to enlist some help. You can't do it all yourself. And so that's been cool to have that happen.
Great audience takeaway. Enlist small children to help you assemble bumpers.
As long as they're your own, I think it's legal. If you enlist other people's children, I don't think that's allowed. But,
was that from your research of child labor laws over the last few weeks?
Here, clean this socket wrench.
Are you consulting YouTube or other sources for guidance, or you're figuring it out yourself? Or you know what you're doing for the most part, obviously. But
also interesting that you asked. There's one build thread that is like the North Star for this, and it's a dude who bought a red car off BAT, of course, right? Guy bought it off BAT and went super deep. It's this guy from Seattle, and it's on one of the E28 forums, and he built a red car. And he did this whole thing. He documented the whole thing. And he had some body guy or paint staff guy that came to his house and helped him do it. And his is really OCD, documented really well. And then there's a couple bad blogs that show you what you don't want it to look like. But his was really, really good. So down to, and he's one of these guys that lists all the exact tires he bought for the exact rims that he bought, everything, right? Part numbers, all this stuff. So all of that has been super helpful. And then the guy I sourced all my parts from in LA has been super helpful. He also sells on BAT. And when I was on a business trip in LA, whenever it was, a year ago, I bought 2 suitcases worth of all the parts to start getting the Euro bumper swap going. So it's been a long time in the works, but there is definitely some help. And then some of it you can just kind of figure out, but you got to get all the pieces.
And what's the plan when it's done? Commute it?
That was going to be my driver, yeah. So many years later, that's my driver. I love those cars, man. It drives really, really nice. It's modern enough that it has, AC and sounds and a sunroof, and then it's old enough that it looks cool, and it's just not another random new 5 Series, right? So it's a really neat car that I like, and I would like to put some miles on. It's got 140,000 on it, I think. So it's a pretty well used car, but it's pretty clean. And you really don't see them in that shape anymore. So rock and roll. I'm ready to drive it.
Agree. I'm stoked to see it outside.
That's awesome. Well, apologies. It's been a couple of weeks since our last recording. We've had a lot going on. Thanksgiving, Omicron. None of that has diminished enthusiasm for all the cars and trucks and bikes we're selling. So we definitely have a whole bunch to choose from. Something that went across very recently, which really caught my eye, which I knew was gonna be a great result, because it's truly a find another one, which was the Land Rover Discovery that won the 1990 Camel Trophy. Maybe one of the coolest Land Rover Range Rovers in existence, certainly that we've ever sold. So the Camel Trophy, what is it? It was an event that ran in the 80s and 90s that was supported by Land Rover. What was cool about it is, I think it took place all over the globe, right? They were in Brazil and Africa. This particular car, they were in Siberia for the 1990 event. But I think they did 15 or 20 of them, all Land Rovers. Even the support vehicles were Land Rovers. So 1990, this was an early Discovery. I think the support cars running then were 110s or 127s, or maybe a combination of the two.
We get a lot of alleged support Land Rovers submitted to us.
Yeah, right. So a Camel Trophy support, that'd be a cool rig, but the winning truck is a cut above. These cars were outfitted by Land Rover Special Vehicles program, so they were very intentionally prepared for this kind of marathon event. But a lot of people are decking their cars out kind of in the style of, but this was the one, and sold for $138,000, which I don't know if I have an opinion on what it might be worth, given that it's the car, but definitely a very, very historic discovery, and we were thrilled to list it.
I mean, these things in those events were absolutely trashed, right? I mean, you look at the photos. That's another reason this one's so valuable, because it came through it in pretty good shape. Like, you look at Camel Trophy photos online, and you'll find them with water up to the roof line, right? I mean, they're like, you can really basically use up the vehicles over the course of these crazy events. And for those that don't know, I'm no total expert on Camel Trophy, but watching videos and just being psyched about off-roading back in that sort of day. I mean, it's kind of like a timed rally. You need to get from point to point, but there are also, I think, like skills challenges, and like sometimes you had to float the vehicles down a river. I mean, you did all sorts of really unusual and crazy things that they were outfitted for. And it was typically two-man teams from different countries. So it almost had a Olympics sort of mentality of the Dutch team versus the South American team versus the Brits versus I think there were some American teams. But Camel Trophy and that logo, I mean, there was all sorts of merchandise and marketing and videos and all this stuff back when I was a kid getting into four-wheel drive stuff, and this was the most extreme of it all. So really to find this vehicle, like Howard said, a mustard-colored Rover with stickers on it. You can find one of those and find some pretty cool ones, actually, but to find the ones that actually did the event and survived the event and were the winner of the event, I've actually never seen another one for sale really offered anywhere. So I think it would be super interesting to watch now if more of these come out of the woodwork.
And they went to some pretty far out places. They went to rainforests and the Amazon and Burundi, and this was in Siberia, like we said. But I mean, just the logistics of getting everyone to the starting grid and then dropping the green flag is definitely encourage people to check out some YouTube vids on Camel Trophy. But Camel was obviously the cigarette company that was the lead sponsor, and Land Rover Range Rover was the support. I think that was succeeded by the G4 Challenge. We've sold some Discovery G4s. I don't think that quite had the panache of Camel Trophy, but
it didn't have the cigarette sponsorship, which takes it down a couple notches.
Absolutely. Right? So we've talked about on this pod our favorite events, a number of them. I don't know if we mentioned Camel Trophy, but it's definitely up there. So this was a neat car. Yeah,
and a 2-door model and turbo diesel, so obviously non-USA spec. And somehow this thing's in Alabama coming in, given that it's a 1990 model year. So anyway, a very interesting vehicle and super cool that we could have it. And I mean, you can talk about $138,000 for one of those. You talk about race or event history. We sell different sorts of sports cars that get a very meaningful value bump if it was at the right race at the right time. This is an event winner. So you talk about price. I mean, I think if you're in that world, it doesn't shock me at all that something would bring 6 figures for something that wins the Camel Trophy, if that's your sort of pinnacle of off-road sport or motorsport.
Would you rather have that or a Bob Tullius TR8?
Oh, wow.
We're talking about esoteric, real deal race cars.
And both British, yeah. And they have the same, no, this is a diesel, but I mean, they put the Tilius, I think it was a V8 in that car, right? Is it a Rover V8? Yeah. And these things in US trim had Rover V8s. There's some through lines there.
I mentioned that because that car was running at Velocity and I was on the pre-grid with it. And
esoteric stuff, right? That's actually, isn't that the guys out of Grand Prix Classics out of San Diego? That's actually a pretty cool car. I'm actually okay with that. I never thought I'd maybe say that, but I'll take the TR8, Bob. So anyway, other cool stuff on the site. We've had all sorts of wild listings. What other stuff are you guys gravitating towards on the site right now?
Well, Zach, there seems to be no shortage of Uber 2- and 3-digit mile Buick GNXs. I know we've touched on that in the past, but I've enjoyed seeing a constant stream of those going across all people that are super psyched for each one.
Yes, we're in a lovely, lovely period of wealth in Grand Nationals and GNXs, all incredibly low mileage on the GNX side, some pretty low mileage Grand Nationals as well.
I don't want a GNX that has 300 miles on it, though. Do you? I mean, I'd love to actually just go run one of those at stoplights or whatever. So
I gotta even walk that back and say, do I want a GNX? That's more the question I ask myself.
Or I guess, I mean, is GNX a guarantee over just a Grand National? Would you just go drive a Grand National, or would you want it? Everybody wants a GNX. That's a terrible question. I would have to take the GNX.
Really, I would confidently own a Grand National.
Totally. Like I think they're incredible. And I'm not a super low mileage guy, as you know. I just spilled that my BMW has 140K on it. So not 140 miles, 140,000 miles.
I mean, we really beat the mileage topic to death, I think, in an earlier podcast. Yeah. But what pleasure do you derive out of owning something that has that kind of mileage? I mean,
what, high mile or low mile?
Low.
I totally get it. I totally get why people pay all the dough. Mm-hmm. And I think they should. And I think those GNXs are spectacular when they're that brand new. But everybody gets their own. I love freedom just as much as I love GNXs. So people get to choose whatever they want.
GNXs and loving freedom, that's heavy overlap. And
Totally. That's why I like both. So, anyway, there's been some good ones of those. But what other good stuff have we had?
One of your favorite cars, Rennie, that actually recently came back around was the GTI Callaway. Stage 2 turbo.
And rung the bell and freaked a lot of people out with what it brought, right? What did it bring the first time versus the second time? I got to pull that up.
I think it was, Zach, 38 or 40, and then did 62 this time.
Yeah.
And people were losing their minds when that was on the site 6-ish months ago. I went to a cool guy who drove it around New England and then resold it. But, I know we were all geeking out about that.
38 and then 62 18 months apart. And I mean, I don't know. Could it repeat 62 over and over and over again? I don't know. Sometimes it's just a fist fight and they go for big dough because another one's not going to come for a while. But, I love GTIs. Mark 1 GTIs in white are fantastic. And it's on one hand super cool to see, people appreciating it because I think more will come out of the woodwork onto BAT. But it's also kind of crazy to think about it. It costs you whatever, new Golf R money or whatever to get into a Mark 1 that's got 140 horse on its best day.
Yeah, well said. I look to you very much as the resident VW expert and mouthpiece for the broader VW community. So I wanted to throw this one to you, dovetailing off that GTI. Have you checked out the VR6 swapped Rally Golf?
I have. I very much have. I saw that when it was in the system. In the back end before it made it to the live site. I think it's a real Rally Golf as far as I know, right? And then it's just the engine swap and the lowered suspension and stuff are obviously pretty heavily modded. But that's pretty wild. You don't see a lot of Rally Golfs in the US. I have never seen one in the US in the flesh. I've seen plenty in Europe, and they're around, and I kind of follow those, and I kind of like them. I have a narrow body one, and kind of prefer that look. But
educate me. What is a Rally? Is that all-wheel drive, or what is a Rally?
All-wheel drive homologation car for I believe Group A Rally, and pretty cool car. Box flares, narrow headlights that have air intakes beneath them. Obviously, the all-wheel drive system that I don't know if was actually the Synchro system or if it was slightly different than that, but kind of certainly an unusual car, sort of in the vein of the E30 M3, just sort of box flared and not for the general masses, but with some crazy equipment, and never for the U.S. Ton of people back in the day would swap in the headlight setup out of a it had projector headlights and a slimmer headlight, which some people thought were super cool on Jettas and GTIs and Golfs.
Dude, these are going around Nürburgring on Sundays for lapping, right?
Absolutely. But nowadays,
the ultimate German
finding a clean stock one in a good color is really hard. I mean, they've all gone tuner. It's like trying to find a good STI is going to be in another 15 years, like the 2.5 RS that hasn't had a intake kit put on it, right? It's like not going to exist. So those cars, so many are tuned, and this one's tuned pretty crazy. A lot of people want the 6-cylinder horsepower bump, but
that
yeah,
6-cylinder noise coming out of that thing.
People love VR6 sound, so yeah, that's kind of
another reason why I want to grill you on that is because I keep pulling up that listing back to back with the Delta Integrale Evo 2 we have, and that's also very in your wheelhouse. I see some overlap between those box flares, humble hatches, but rally homologations.
Integrale is very near the top of my list, as you know. I love those cars, always have. So I don't think the Volkswagen ever quite got to the stature of the Integrale, but it's still a super cool car and maybe rarer based on numbers because a ton of Integrales were built. So.
Yeah, what's interesting is, I mean, both these cars have a lot of room to climb. I think they both have 4 days left and are ending on the same day, but the Golf really looks like a value proposition, bidding around the mid-20s right now, and that Delta Integrale is at $95,000. So it's pretty cool. You can get something that's rally homologated, wide body, box flares, with that kind of presence and production numbers that low at such a discount compared to something that's relatively similar on paper.
No, that's a good way to look at it. And if you're into unusual stuff, right? I mean, I got my Integrale and I was all stoked that I've got the only one around or whatever, and now they're all over the place, as you guys know, right? I mean, those show up to many events. You don't see too many of them on the road, but you certainly see them in car circles and plenty of photos of them. I don't know if there's tens or hundreds of them in the U.S. now, but I mean, many people have brought them in. But like I say, you can, I don't know, count on one hand how many real rally Golfs there are in the U.S.
Oh, well, I'm glad you reminded me, because it would have totally fallen out of my consciousness. But I was in New York City a few weeks back, and
you saw a rally Golf driving down the road.
I was standing at a stoplight, and some guy was there in a Maserati Shamal, and I was like, "Hey, dude, nice Shamal." He was like, "Hey," he was like, "What's up?" Like, no one knows. Who are you? No one knows this is a Shamal. And we got to talking. He was like, "Oh, I'm the guy who sold Randy's Delta Integrale."
Oh, no way.
I was like, "Oh, okay."
Phil.
Yeah, I forget.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah.
That guy's got a bunch of interesting cars. What color was it?
Black.
The Shamal?
They're all
red,
black
right?
or silver or red, aren't they? No. I thought you can get a black one.
It was
no?
not red. It was a color that was not red.
Okay.
Nice.
Anyways,
We've listed a couple of those, and then a few of those have been floating around. I just saw pictures of one in SoCal.
But no, amazing small world. My nice Shamal comment set off quite a lively discussion.
Totally.
On this.
You tell him I blew up the engine? Oh, you should have. I don't know if I even told him that part yet. But he has another Integrale. He bought, after he got rid of mine, he said he missed it, and he bought another one, that gray colored one. Oh,
all red based on our search results.
Zach's trying to throw down that Shamals are only red.
No,
I don't even know.
I say that slightly.
They're all bi-turbos to me. I don't really understand all the differences. So
thankfully, that community is small of Shamal owners. They won't. People are coming after you. There'll only be about 3 of them in front of your house.
We're talking about red cars, so I'll see them coming.
We're talking about Randy's E28. We had a 88 Alpina B7 Turbo that kind of went nuts.
Is that the one we put catalysator in the title?
Yeah, they made like, what, 250 or 300 of them, Zach, and then a fraction of those had a catalytic converter. And is that because you can register in California?
I have no idea, but I saw it in the title. I laughed my head off. I was like, wow, somebody writing for BAT had to figure out how to spell catalytic in German and make sure it was in the title, because it's on the badge on the back of the car. That's why they put it on. I thought that was kind of funny. But real Alpina B7, not too many of those floating around either. And look like, obviously a huge, monster result. I'm just looking at it now. $163,000. Wow. It must be those Euro bumpers, Zach.
I think that's what it is. We're going to slap a set of Alpina stickers on the side of yours as well.
What is he at?
Weaves.
85,000 original miles? Man, that's a nice car.
I mean, that's a fantastic one.
Dutch plates, was it? But it was in California. It must have just gotten here. Cool. Anyway, yeah, good, nice call pulling that one out. Man, 162 grand for one of those now. I remember we sold pretty early in BAT auctions. We sold one and it hit like 70 grand and everybody's,
I remember.
melted.
Clo Bill.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
it was an early one. I remember it well.
I love that you remember that. It's so solid. I'm going to search that up right now. But no, that was, everybody thought that was like a huge number, and this is over double. Let's see what that one actually.
And then that same guy is a cool guy. He sold a really sharp TI 2002, I recall. But that was an early one.
You search Alpina B7 and you go way deep into E65 sedans. Hold on, I'm trying to wade my way through here. Let's see if I can find it was green and color. There it is with the parking lights on in the shot. It's sold for $60,500.
Was that 2015?
That was 2014.
Wow.
September 2014.
Two-digit lot
I'll
number.
pull a lot number. He may be in the two-digit club. 42.
Yeah,
that was car number 42 on BAT. And you knew the guy who won it, which is amazing. The guy who sold it was Roy W33. And it sold for $60K. And I remember people being like, oh my gosh, Randy, what's happening? BAT auctions are crazy. You're selling E28s for $60,000. And now that one just went for $100K more than that. So, hey, I guess we all should have bought that one back then.
That was a long time ago, man. 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Lots changed.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely.
We've been having a seeming never-ending menu of really awesome 4x4s and trucks. Stock and modified and everything in between. We have two pretty exceptional 4x4s. Zach, you wanted to chat about those. One is actually something that I've never even knew existed. It's a 70s Bronco style truck built around a modern Raptor.
Well, I don't think it existed until this build was finished, right?
Well, right. But I mean, I don't even know who's building these things, but I think I actually fielded this one when it came through, and I was just like, talk about doing a double take of what am I looking at here?
It's so funny scrolling through the listing. I always think that somebody dropped the ball and swapped in the wrong interior photos for that truck, because you go to the exterior and it's all like stretched Bronco pickup body, and then you go to the interior, it's modern F-150 Raptor.
Sometimes it's hard to figure out on some hot rods and this one where they meld the two together. But yeah, it's pretty wild to look at all the drivetrain. I know you guys have maybe driven some Raptors or been in some Raptors, but this thing would be great going down the road compared to the old twin beam and leafs out back and all that sort of stuff. This thing, I think it'd go down the road really well. It looks like the engineering they did on it's pretty cool. And then are you guys aware of the 4-door Broncos like this where the top comes off called the Centurion? Mm-hmm. We've listed a few Centurions. I don't believe they ever did it in this 70s body style. It took until the OJ body style before they started building those, or maybe the bullnose. But that's what this reminded me of, and I was like, wow, did one of those exist? So I kind of went down the rabbit trail of figuring out, was there ever a 4-door Bronco removable top that they just grabbed this body from, or did these guys have to really build this thing from scratch? And it looks like they took the latter. They like kind of molded together several cabs and beds and bodies to make this thing work and make the wheelbase work. And I think it's pretty cool. A bunch of people have been texting me about it saying, Randy, check this thing out. All your Raptor friends, like, who actually say they want an old Bronco. Here's the combo.
Yeah, there's some Bronco, there's some F-250, and like, who knows what other, Ford truck parts bin stuff they needed to wrangle together to make this work. But it's pretty neat and something that is truly in a class of its own as far as I'm concerned when you're talking about kind of customized, personalized, modified vintage trucks.
Well, it's an interesting contrast with the 49 Power Wagon we have live, because that build also heavily custom, heavily personalized, built on an older body style, but also I believe built on at least the period frame of a Power Wagon there, mm-hmm. rather than a full body swap. Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they'll do those on a 2500 Dodge, and do the whole thing. But you can pick those out pretty quickly based on based on some aesthetics. So that one, I didn't look too close on that one, whether it's still on the old frame but with new axles, or if they actually went ahead and just lifted the body, custom built the body to the new frame. But guys are building some really wild stuff, and as we know, it costs quite a bit to commission one of these, and it's usually a couple years or more to have one built. So the fact that these are coming available and you can snap your fingers and get one of these, granted it costs a whole bunch of money, but you don't have to wait in line for these craftsmen to build it if you like what these look like.
No, that's that truck, a 1949 Power Wagon, not too many 1949 parts still left there, but done by an outfit called Desert Power Wagons in Phoenix. Cummins diesel, custom body. They extended the body to accommodate the rear doors and all that sort of stuff. So definitely something that is pretty mean rolling down the road.
Yeah, well said. And I also think there's just something worth mentioning where we get a lot of custom builds. Some err a little more on the homebrew side of the custom build world, but these two are pretty clearly well executed through and through, which is why we both made the call to bump them as premium auctions. So
premium 4-wheel drives. How many things fall into that category other than these two crazy builds?
Man, I hope more more Camel Trophy winning Land Rovers.
I'd take a Perry Dakar, though. You were about to go down that road. They raced Range Rovers and actually Land Cruisers and all sorts of weird stuff in that. I don't know if that gets premium billing unless we get the bottle of champagne that went with it when it won the event. But anyway, we got to keep our eyes out for those. Some good stuff getting submitted.
Other thing I wanted to shout out, which is maybe something we'll never see again, is we listed the coolest Porsche 924 out there, which was a Carrera GTR, a Holbert racing car that I don't know how many of those they made, but it couldn't have been many. And that was the real deal. A car that ran it at the Rennsport reunion in 15, and super cool flares, full on Carrera GTR race car, dry sump, Kugel Fischer injection. So that was really neat to see on the site, and those don't come along very often. So I was really proud that we got the chance to sell that one.
I thought it was gutsy that we described the drivetrain in that Porsche 924 as a turbocharged and intercooled 2.25 liter Audi inline four. I thought that was fighting words for some folks. I thought that may. I didn't know where that was going to go for the Porsche and the Audi folks, but I loved it. Yeah, look at that car. I mean, the rear shot with those wide rear fenders of fiberglass and the big wing. What a neat looking car.
Anyways, interesting stuff. Any final thoughts, guys?
I'm just always watching, using my watch list. Zach always says, Randy, what's on your watch list? And I love getting alerts and seeing what's going through the system and seeing what I wish I could have. It just keeps coming.
I still want functionality for the site where everyone can just view your watch list publicly.
View other people's watch list?
Just yours, man. I think that's an interesting way to slice and dice the site. What's Randy Nonneberg looking at?
Weird stuff.
Yeah, other than that, I would just recommend everybody check out 911R's video on the Safari 911. Have you guys had the pleasure of watching this?
Is he selling that red one? Is that him?
Hydraulic handbrake.
It's not the same one he sold with the donuts on the beach video where he was ripping around Oregon.
No, that was one of the first ones we had. Man, was that the supercharged one? But that was early days. This one's a little different.
Give us a teaser on the video, Zach. What are we going to find?
Oh, so good. Full demo of what it's like to own that car. Multiple uses of the hydraulic handbrake come into play. Some wonderful slides, full throttle through 2 gears over railroad tracks. Really everything you'd hope and dream driving a Safari 911 would be. So yeah, 911R always pulls out all the stops for his videos. I think more so than many other sellers, and this video does not disappoint.
Very good. We'll check that out. Thanks for tuning in. Please keep sending us your requests and suggestions for tools and features and everything you want to see. We're working every day to make the site better and better and build out everything that you, the community, wants to be able to do on VAT. So thanks again, and we'll see you next week.